New year, new me. This is the year that I put my diabetes to the test. I am going to share with you today how I maintained 98% time in range on average with my blood sugars with back-to-back weekend holiday celebrations. And I'm also going to share with you a crazy, shocking announcement where I put my blood sugars to the absolute test, something I have never done before, this literal experiment with my blood sugars as I turn into a mad scientist. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Vandevecht. I am a type 1 diabetic, also a certified master fitness trainer and nutritionist. And this week, I'm going to share with you something that I'm doing that honestly has me a little bit nervous. But before we get into our stories and our announcements, I'm going to kick things off with our theme song.
I've spent the last 10 years pushing the limits while identifying trends and patterns in my type 1 diabetes management. Follow along as I learn, apply, and share the fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle strategies that I've learned from diabetes experts around the world. The real question is, how can we live fearlessly with diabetes while maintaining stable blood sugars? This podcast is here to give you the answer. My name is Matt Vandevecht, head coach and co-founder of FTF Warrior, and welcome to Pardon My Pancreas.
All right, so new year, everyone likes to make these New Year's Eve resolutions. So I'm going to just jump in with mine and give you guys an idea of this madness that I've got going on in my life coming up in front of me. And that is that, oh my gosh, I can't even say it out loud because it's so shocking. I have officially registered to compete in my first ever triathlon sprint. What have I done? I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't even know what it entailed when I first said yes to it. And I'm only now understanding the task that I have truly taken on. Now, I'm not one to back away from a challenge. So how this all happened is not actually a New Year's Eve resolution where I just decided drunkenly to go ahead and challenge myself. Mostly because I didn't get drunk and I didn't celebrate New Year's. I went to bed early because it was my first chance in days to get to bed before midnight. And I took advantage of that. So my daughter's been keeping us up a little bit, but that's okay. Different story. But no, this actually starts quite a while before New Year's. And so it's actually Thanksgiving, the day before Thanksgiving is when it was. And I was volunteering, first time doing that, by the way. That was a blast, helping out people that needed help. And my pastor at my church actually came up to me and he was like, "Hey, you're a fit guy. You like mountain biking, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love mountain biking." He was like, "Cool. So me and a couple other guys in the church are doing a triathlon. You want to do it with us?" And I was like, "What? Yeah, why not?" And I just, in that moment, I decided I'm going to do a triathlon. It sounded cool, honestly. That's the main reason. I was like, it sounds cool, and I want to challenge myself. Like this whole last couple of months, my wife and I have been challenging ourselves to do hard things. Where it's like, if I don't want to do it, I probably should, right? Like oftentimes, it's the things that we have this friction with that are actually good for us. I don't want to eat healthy. Turns out that's good for me. I don't want to go for a run. Turns out that's good for me too, right? So long story short, my pastor was like, "Do you want to do a triathlon?" And I was like, "Sure, like why not? Who's doing this?" And turns out none of them have done it before either. He was like, "Yeah, we all just thought it would be a fun idea." I was like, "Okay." So we're doing that. Now I got to be real with you. Literally my first thought was, how am I going to navigate blood sugars for a triathlon? Right? Like that's a lot of activity, different activity. It's an endurance sport. I don't do those things. I haven't competed in an endurance sport like ever. And so it's a lot of kind of new territory for me. So I took this on as a challenge, but then I also wanted to kind of share with you guys a few of the pieces that I've encountered so far. Now, I went into deep detail on this in our Renegade Warriors newsletter for January. They always get the first dibs on the tips and all the strategies that I'm using. They're going to be hearing about all the daily pieces of this, where I went low or high and why, and how do I plan to keep the blood sugars in range and everything. But the overview is what I want to give you guys today, because I think it's going to be really helpful for anybody who's looking at movement as part of their New Year's resolution or even just your daily life, right? Because movement and blood sugars tend to have a not so great relationship if you don't know what you're doing. And I speak that from experience. The exercise used to be ridiculously difficult to stay in range for. Now, a lot of people, what they notice with exercise is increased insulin sensitivity, which is one of the reasons why you might see a low blood sugar surrounding exercise. But I will say it depends on the type of exercise as well. Like, Matt, what? There's different types of exercise. There are. It depends a lot on your heart rate, the duration, the intensity. Like all these different pieces come into play when looking at our blood sugar response that's expected. However, there's a whole different variable that most people are unaware of, and that is the newness of the activity. In other words, if you haven't worked out for a year and you're just going to jump straight back into the gym, January 1st, it's time to get fit and lose weight, your blood sugars are going to respond very differently than they would if you had been going to the gym for 6 months and today's just another day going to the gym. Okay. So I want you to be ready for that, because the first time back, your body responds differently, but your blood sugars also do as well. And that is no stranger to me, as my first time getting back out on the road and running was kind of a crazy day for me. Now, before I got to running, my first welcome back into increasing my exercise, I have been going to the gym regularly. Well, I say going to the gym, going to the garage. I have an at-home gym that I've accumulated over the years. And what I decided to do to get myself kind of prepared for cardio, since I don't typically partake in the cardio type of fitness, is I thought that I would replace my rests in between weightlifting. So, typically you bench press and then you sit and kind of text on your phone. And then you bench press, then you call a friend or whatever. Instead of doing that, I would bench press and then do jumping jacks, and then bench press and then do skipping rope. And then I would bench press and then I would dance around the garage to my music, right? So I didn't give myself breaks. Essentially, I was doubling the amount of activity, because instead of working out, break, it was workout, 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 workout. Does that make sense so far? So in doing that, initially, didn't see anything too crazy happen with blood sugars. I expected more insulin sensitivity, and I got it, right? I certainly had to have some extra sugar before I got into my next meal. However, it responded pretty average, pretty expected, and I didn't quite see the impact until many hours later, when all of a sudden my insulin sensitivity peaked. And for those of you who are unaware of this, insulin sensitivity does not necessarily peak during the activity. Sometimes it is hours later, and there is a very specific component that you have to study to understand kind of when that's going to hit. And actually, the word hit kind of makes me think of a new topic for you. HIIT is a type of exercise, HIIT, high intensity interval training. There's also LISS, low intensity steady state, right? These are two opposite sides of the spectrum. Most times, I'm getting off on a tangent here, I apologize, but I hope this is helpful. Most times, the higher intensity exercises can lead to an increase of blood sugar, and oftentimes the lower intensity, going for a walk, a jog, a bike ride, can oftentimes lead to a lowering blood sugar effect. Now, the peak of the insulin sensitivity for me hit many hours later. Get this, I needed 50 grams of carbs, 50, just to avoid going low. Now, thankfully, I knew that was coming, right? Like, this is what I do. I study the science of blood sugars. It's my passion. It's why I help people, and I have coaching programs dedicated to these topics. So I was ready for it, but even still, I didn't expect that much. And this is new to me. Remember, I have never trained for a triathlon before. And I'll add a piece of context. It is a triathlon sprint. So it's a little bit different than the international competitions for triathlons. But with this, 50 grams of carbs, hours after the activity, no insulin on board, so we can take that variable out of the equation. It was frustrating, to say the least. Now, thankfully, I was ready for that. I was aware of what was likely going to happen. So because of that, I ate a later dinner, so I had room, I had a buffer in my time frame to eat those carbs before I introduced the insulin for my dinner. So thankfully, I was ready for it and didn't have to worry about the urgent low that likely would have happened had I dosed and then needed additional 50 grams of carbs plus my dinner, right? I would have been stuffed. I wouldn't want the carbs. It'd been a nightmare. So instead, first thing I want to give you guys is be ready for the unexpected if you don't know what you're doing, or just study it beforehand. So if you are going to go into increased movement, if it's your first day back in the gym or it's your first week, whatever it is, new activity oftentimes will cause our bodies to react differently than it would to activities that we're used to. Okay, so anytime you increase intensity or duration or exercise type, your body's going to have to adapt to that new style, which is oftentimes why we see soreness kicking up, right? Day after you get your first workout back in, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't get up off the couch. This is a nightmare, right? That's part of the reason, but different topic as well. So first thing I want to share with you guys, new activities can lead to unexpected blood sugar responses, especially if you don't know the science. I knew the science. I have my 80-20 blood sugar formula. I was ready, and still it caught me off guard. I was shocked. So looking at the weeks ahead, the months ahead that I've got until the actual event, I've got a lot of training to do, right? That was one workout. And it wasn't even that crazy. So as I'm building up my intensity, my duration, my endurance for these activities, I'm going to be really titrating and fine tuning my insulin amounts and timing. It's going to be critical. I try to say crucial and critical, the same word there. Crucial and critical for me to really have my insulin dialed in, because if it's not, I'm going to be chasing lows all day, every day, and it's going to wreck my training schedule, right? But on a lower level, if you're someone who's just trying to lose a couple pounds, maybe get back into fitness, or maybe it's just going for hikes or bike rides or playing with your kids or grandkids, right? Activity has an impact on blood sugars, and you got to be ready for that. So one of the things I would recommend, of course, is that if you don't know anything about blood sugars, Google it. Well, I'm going to take that back. Google is a little bit dangerous because you will find conflicting information. Go through our YouTube channel. FTF Warrior, just go search that. There's a lot of good stuff there. Have a deeper understanding of insulin on board. Understand that if you have insulin on board, it's going to impact the resulting blood sugar of exercise quite significantly, right? In a good or bad way, depending on the situation. But when I'm looking at my training schedules, I want to reduce insulin on board as much as possible to reduce the variability. So that's just some hard tactics I want to give you guys as something that I'm going to be working on. Now, of course, if you're somebody who is already experiencing the lows or already experiencing the ups and downs as a result of having the roller coaster blood sugars, the next thing for you to do is to develop more consistency in your patterns. So isolating for me was like, if I run, I expect a drop, right? So how can I prepare for that drop? That's a pattern that I can take action on. And these are things that we cover in our Fix My Blood Sugars challenge. If you haven't heard about that yet, it's fantastic. It's the best resource that exists for diabetics anywhere. I am 100% confident in that. And here's how confident I am. In that challenge, we've already seen, I think, like 160 people go through it. We guarantee that you will learn everything you need to hit 90% time in range. My average over the last like 3 or 4 years or whatever it was, 93% daily. That's just like what my life is now because of the strategies that I teach in that. And that's the same reason I didn't crash and go low when I was beginning the training for my triathlon. In fact, I have yet to hit one of those crashing lows. Today, I worked out and then went for a mile run. I'm ramping up the intensity and the duration of my exercises, and I can do so safely, right? Same thing if you're trying to lose weight or play with the grandkids, go for a hike. Doesn't matter. There's a safe way to incorporate these things into your lifestyle, right? And of course, I'm on the crazy side, the person who didn't know what a triathlon was and is now signed up to compete in one, which if you're in San Diego, feel free to come say hi. I'll be training all up and down the coast. But if you are looking at how do I control blood sugars through exercise, if that's ever been a question on your mind, you got to go sign up for that challenge. Literally 5 days will teach you everything you need to know without it being overwhelming. It's just this answers, right? And on top of that, we also hook you up with one of our specialists to get you some feedback to make sure that it is making sense for you and not just a generic cookie cutter approach, right? So as I'm looking ahead at this triathlon sprint, I want to add that context in there. I'm not cool enough to do a full international triathlon just yet. This is my first go. But I have a journey ahead of me, right? Like there's a lot of effort. Like if you put diabetes off to the side, it's still a very difficult task, right? To compete in a triathlon sprint, that's a lot. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm learning as I go. And that was the second piece that I wanted to encourage you with today. While it is New Year's, and this is a new thing, I didn't wait until New Year's to register, to commit, or to start my training. This happened weeks ago. And I could have waited, right? In fact, I did. I waited for a couple weeks and I was like, I don't know if I'm really ready to start training. It's still early. I've got months before I have to worry about it. I was like, why am I procrastinating? It's because I don't want to do it. It's a hard thing, right? So therefore, I have to do it. There's this great phrase I heard, I can't, therefore I must. I can't train today. That means I have to, right? And it's because we want to avoid doing hard things. And so for me, that's been my phrase. I don't want to do that. Darn it. That means I have to, right? And there's a whole story behind that we get into in this month's newsletter and the challenge as well. But with life throwing whatever curveballs are coming at us, there is no perfect time. If I had waited until New Year's to register, I probably would have found some other excuse as to why I don't need to register until February. But instead, I started, and starting got me to build up my momentum. And now I feel like I'm in a good spot with enough time to get these things sorted, especially because blood sugars will likely throw a wrench in my training schedule, right? Even with all of my knowledge and experience, this will be my ultimate blood sugar experiment. I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I've never done a triathlon before. The longest I've ever run before was when I was qualifying as a firefighter, and that was 3 miles. And that was just a run. I also have to bike and swim now. No idea what that looks like, but my process remains the same. I will still be using the 80-20 blood sugar formula to map out all of my strategies. It is foundational to everything I do. It's how I maintain my average of 93%. And by the way, this last week we had Christmas and New Year's, 2 celebration weekends, right? Back to back. In that week, as you see right here, my average time in range was 98%. As you see, it's a 5% increase, which means the week before, 93%, right? So 98% with 2 holidays and training every day, well, 5 days for the triathlon sprint. That is what is possible. And that's what we teach in that challenge, right? So got a bunch of cool stuff for you guys over in that challenge because it's the new year. Of course, we want to throw out some extra bonuses and make it extra helpful for you to cover everything that you need. Like I said, access to our specialists as well. So if you're somebody who either has not yet gotten 90% time in range, or if you don't know how to predictably do it, like I can tell you, hey, tomorrow I'm going to hit 90% time in range or better. It's guaranteed. Like it's going to happen. If you don't have that kind of certainty, even with exercise, mysterious foods, who knows how much I'm going to sleep tonight because of our baby. I know with certainty I will be hitting 90% tomorrow and the next day and the next day. If you want that kind of confidence in your diabetes management, you got to go over to that challenge and sign up at fixmybloudsugars.com. Okay, so Fix My Blood Sugars, there's an S on the end, it's plural, fixmybloudsugars.com. It's going to give you everything you need to hit that 90% time in range day consistently. And that's what I want for you. So you can, of course, then shift your attention away from blood sugars and focus more on living life and doing crazy things like signing up for a triathlon sprint spontaneously without even knowing what it is. That's the kind of life you should be able to live. Diabetes does not have to hold you back. It just requires putting the right strategies in place so you can rely on them while you live your best life, right? So if that sounds like something that you want to do, not the triathlon, I don't expect that of anybody. I'm still like almost second guessing myself. I'm committed now, but I'm like, why did I do that? But if you want the freedom and the flexibility to be able to even consider things like that, you got to go to fixmybloudsugars.com, register for the challenge. Everybody else in there is an amazing community. We have a private platform that everybody can chat and talk on, and it's just a blast. I bought everybody coffee in there today just because we're all friends. So go over to that challenge, sign up for it. They're going to be getting direct updates of my training schedule, of what's working, what's not. And there's actually going to be an article in this next month's Renegade Warriors newsletter as well. And they're all getting access to that included. So go grab it. Got tons of great stuff for you. It's going to help you literally fix your blood sugars. And that's what I want for you in 2023. So fixmybloudsugars.com. Let's all just drop a comment below about how crazy Matt is for even considering a triathlon. And can't wait to see you guys in the challenge. So here's to 2023 and doing something I've never done before, the ultimate blood sugar experiment. And I look forward to sharing this journey with you guys as I continue it. So we'll see you next week. Go fixmybloudsugars.com. I'll catch you guys later. Keep up the fight.